Everybody's afraid of the front row, so don't worry. Come on up. If we fill up, we'll set more chairs up once these are full. So the panel is getting ready up here. I'm going to turn it over to Jason for just a quick second, and he just wanted to thank you guys for being here.
Jeff's right. No, I appreciate you guys coming here and wanting to learn about this. I think everybody here has probably had an experience with type 1L, and that's what this whole thing is about, is just to try to figure it out, try to make some sense of it, and try to help. Because if we're, I think if we're, the worst thing we can do is we're kind of stuck with it, I think. It's not like it's going to go backward. We're not going back to the good old days. We completely, so what can we do to help you guys learn about it and work with it and try to figure some things out. So that's what it's all about. And the best part about this is if you guys are here, that probably means you're coming to the party afterward or something. So that's right down, floor down or something, right? Floor 6. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of fun things there. I think we still have, they can still buy a ticket to that if they want to, right? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, it's just a floor below this. There's going to be, I think, karaoke. What else? Oh yeah, we're going down in the field. There's going to be some competitions down on the field. Okay, so there's going to be a 40-yard dash, and there's good prizes for the winners of these too. So there's going to be a 40-yard dash down on the field. Whoever wants to do that. Last year we probably had 20, 30 people lined up racing, and then there's also going to be a passing competition. So who can throw the ball the farthest? Okay, so that's going to be another thing we do down there, and a kicking. So if you're a good field goal kicker, we're going to kick field goals too. So it's going to be kind of fun. It's going to be, I think there's going to be some good laughs. Yeah, no, thanks everybody for coming here, and special thanks to the people on the panel. I appreciate them taking their time and doing that today too. So.
Yeah, and also at the party, we're going to be introducing this year's SmackDown lineup. It is going to be another big part of that, so you can meet all those guys and mingle with them. And yeah, thanks for coming out. Kind of like Jason said, another thing is that, nobody has the magic answer to any of this. And it's just all the whole point of this is to have an open discussion, an honest discussion, and to try to learn as much from each other as we can and as much from the panel as we can. But obviously, if any of us had all the magic answers to this, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd already be on a beach somewhere because we'd be making a lot of money. So just keep that in mind that, this is an educational thing, but this is still something everybody's trying to figure out. And, we want you to learn as much as possible, but you're not going to leave here and never have a single issue again. That's just not how this stuff works. It's just about adding and chunking away at it and trying to figure out what works for you. So as far as the panel, you guys can go ahead and take your seats. Also, Jason wanted me to mention, yeah, I feel like the handheld mic needs to come up a little bit. All right. Try them again. Let's go a little bit more. So as far as it goes, I know this is a hot topic right now. And a lot of people have had some problems, and this is a very emotional thing. This is our livelihood as concrete finishers, and we start having problems like this, it can cause a big, impact on your business. So we want to hear what you guys have to say. We want to be honest about things, but we don't want this to turn into a big complaint session, and we don't want this to get out of hand. So if anybody gets too emotional and we feel like we need to calm down a little bit, we will ask you to maybe step outside the back door to calm down.
Have a drink, and then come back up when you're calmed down.
And if you're asked to step outside and you don't after the first time, we also have a former MMA fighter over here who will be here to sort of enforce the rules for us. So, and yes, Big Mike said he was going to be happy to escort somebody out if he has to. So that was a joke. We didn't talk to Big Mike about that, but. All right. Without further ado, I think we're ready.
So I think just if you have something you want to say, right, or a comment or question, just probably raise your hand and ask, and then we'll probably let whoever thinks that you guys have something you want to comment on that particular thing, do that. I think that would work probably pretty good. So this is our first time, so just give us a little bit of slack, I guess.
Yeah, Jason's exactly right. When you have questions, I'm sure there's, you'll hear something and you'll have a question. Just raise your hand and I'll come get to you in order. I'll be walking around and handing you guys the mic to take questions in the crowd. Also, are we live, Matt? All right. So those of you guys who are watching online right now, we will also be taking online questions. Obviously, we can't get to every online question. So Rocky's going to be back there monitoring the online questions. And when he sees one that he thinks that we need to ask to the panel, he will come up here. So, go ahead and throw your questions out for those of you on online as well. So, okay, what we're going to do is introduce our panel. So I'm going to start with Carla all the way over on the end. She's going to introduce herself and sort of her background. We'll go down the line, and then we'll get started with the questions.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right, my name is Carla Salashore. I am an engineer. I am a concrete materials engineer, so I investigate cause of failure analysis primarily. So if you guys had a problem in the field and you needed to figure out what happened, I would get involved. I run the concrete petrography, which is the microscopic examination of the concrete to figure out how it got to be that way. Is it the right mix? What happened to it? I work for a company called Wish Janey Elsner Associates. We have a lab that I run up in Cleveland, so not too far from here, but work on projects all over the country and the world.
My name is Jay Witt. I'm a local boy. I live right down the street here. Been in the industry for 30 plus years. Went to the University of Akron, and I'm an engineer also. I actually currently work for Ohio Concrete. Prior to that, I was with a cement manufacturer for 25 years. Part of my day-to-day task were developing products and then promoting them along with technically. So I'm the technical guy that goes out and solves things. Troubleshooting is Carla and I's kind of wheelhouse. Been on thousands of calls. Part of my job was to figure out what's going on and then communicate back to a cement manufacturer of what kind of things impact we are having on the industry. So I'm very familiar with being on this side of the mic, and I've been in situations like this of like, let's figure this out. So thanks for the time.
All right, I guess this is where it changes a little bit. So my name is Ben Bass. I'm the owner of Ben's Concrete Creations. We're based out of Blairsville, Georgia. So I'm a concrete finisher. I'm second generation concrete finisher. Grew up doing traditional concrete. And about 9, almost 10 years ago, we saw what people were doing with decorative and was like, man, this is cool. This is what I want to do. Dove headfirst into it. Ended up meeting some incredible people in the industry. And, this isn't just my job, not working with my hands, but I love concrete. I study it. I want to understand it. So these new issues are near and dear and close to my heart. They are affecting me personally. So, which affects my family, makes my my future feel questionable. So I am literally kind of in y'all's chairs. So we're all here to try to figure out and love to hear from these two and what we can work together and figure out as a team.
I'm Emil Guerra from Northeast Pennsylvania, second generation concrete finisher. Pretty much everything Ben said. Like I always say, every job that we do, we leave a little bit of ourselves behind on it. So take this all very personally. We've seen failures ourselves and just trying to help everybody get to a solution.
Adam Brosnahan. I'm a concrete finisher. Been finishing for, 25 years. And I have a crew. We place and finish concrete like every single one of you. I also am in the ready-mix industry. 10 years ago, I took over a local ready-mix plant that has been around since 1959. And we still continue to do both. This has been a problem. It's been a problem for my customers. It's been a problem for us as a customer of ourselves. And there is things that we've done to try to mitigate it. We've lost customers over this. We've gained customers, but it's not fun. So we continually try to do the right thing, as everybody does. Nobody wants to put out a bad product. Nobody wants to provide a bad end product for a customer. So yeah, it'd be great to hear what everybody has to say and maybe come up with some good stuff here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. This is a very diverse group up here. Concrete finishers, ready mix producer, and on the research end of things, from the cement end of things. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm going to slide this mic a little bit closer. That way you guys don't have to fight with it as bad.
Okay.
That way you could break it. We won't.
All right, I'm going to get started while they're figuring all that out. So we wanted to survey the audience just a little bit, just to give us an idea of what y'all are coming from, what y'all are used to, what issues you guys are seeing in the field to help us kind of inform some of our answers and how we're kind of directing things to be best suited for you and your needs here. So I guess first off, show of hands here, who is local Ohio based in the room? Most of you guys? All right, any like Pennsylvania? Okay, West Virginia, yep. All right, anyone further from like a bordering state? Where are you from? Illinois, okay. Iowa. Delaware. What about in back? St. Louis, love a good, I'm from Missouri, I like that. Back there? Michigan, okay. We have Georgia. Uh-huh. New York. Okay, great. So we have quite a bit of states represented here. And I think you'll find that, I mean, not every day of concrete placement's the same, but it's going to be significantly different between Georgia and New York. So just something to keep in mind here. We have a lot of different expertise and backgrounds and geographical locations as well. All right. Who in the audience, raise of hands, is a contractor? You're placing, you're finishing. Okay. Do we have any suppliers out there? Okay. Any other engineer, consultant? I don't know. Okay.
I think that's just you two up there.
Yeah, great. That's right. We have no one to fight. We figured it would be mostly contractors, but just getting in front of that one here. All right, let's see, show of hands. Everyone, if you've been doing this for 5 years, keep your hands up. Have you been doing it more than 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25, 30, 40? Wow. Okay. Well, kudos to you guys. We appreciate your commitment to the concrete industry. You've seen a lot of changes and you're still here. So that says something about you guys. All right. So switching a little bit to the 1L discussion here. My first question to you guys, kind of surveying still, is how many of you guys know what type of cement you're using in the concrete you're placing? Like if I were to ask you, do you have a 1L or a 1-2 or a blend of 3? Do you guys know? Depends on the job.
Well, you guys are all over too.
Yeah. Okay. How many of you guys don't know or don't ask the question? I'm assuming a handful of you guys. Okay. And it may be something that we want to start asking that question, like what is this material that we're placing? Just something to maybe think about. And have you guys who know where your concrete and your materials are coming from, have you seen a switch to 1L in your local area? Either you're forced into it or you have purposely entered into the 1L discussion here. I guess how many have been forced into using 1L? Okay. How many of you guys can still find 1-2 in your area, whether it's imported or local? A handful? Okay. There are still some locations that you can find a normal 1-2 mix. So just getting curious there. All right. So what is the main problem that you guys are seeing? I guess another raise of hands here. Are we seeing strength callbacks? Some? Are we seeing reduced bleeding issues? Mm-hmm. Are we seeing scaling? Yes. Finish related? Sticky? Can't finish. Okay. And have you seen an increase in these occurrences over the last couple of years, or have you always had to deal with some of these? Increased. Okay. Also, show of hands here. Are we primarily talking about flat work? Is that the majority of what we're doing here?
You mean not walls or?
Not walls, not structural elements. We're talking flat work and primarily exterior, or do we also see concerns with interior? Interior as well?
Let's just go. Who has had problems exterior? Who has had problems interior? Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Then I guess my last question, just surveying before we can get into it, is has anyone specifically changed their practices or procedures because of some of these issues? Okay, great. And I think that's what we want to start getting to the heart at, and we'll kind of weave that into our discussion as we move forward, but kind of be thinking about those things as we kick off our Q&A here.
All right, we good? Okay, who has the first question? Everybody all at one time. Mr. Sam Thomas, everybody.
Hi. I was a ready-mix producer for over 30 years. We got into placing concrete. My first question is why was no one told about the introduction to 1L into mixes? The cement companies didn't, ready mixes didn't, never heard about it until we had problems. You know, and then I guess why do they keep trying to put some kind of filler into the cement? Is it because of carbon dioxide discharge, or, you know, 40 years ago, it was fly ash. Going to be the next great thing, proves workability, Then you find out it doesn't hold up in exterior concrete. Then 20 years ago, we go to ground granulated blast furnace slag. Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now we don't have that any longer. Now we're starting this 1L. I just don't understand the reasoning for it.
Who wants to take a stab at that one?
I got it.
Thank you, Sam.
I got it. So the reason I grabbed the mic is because I was from the manufacturing process. I've been involved for a number of years, number of those 30 years. So does that matter? I'm local. Okay, that should. No, you know, I started in Bessemer, Pennsylvania. So that's where I started. Right on. Right on. I know the names. You said a lot there. I'm going to just focus on the 1L. I have a lot of comments on slag. I did my research at Akron on slag.
And I did my research on fly ash.
Yeah.
So
So you're going to get a real strong pushback on that from an engineering point of view. Those are great products. But from a mechanics point of view, and I'll go back to mechanics because we're engineers. We're going to think like that. So forgive us. No, that's what you wanted. So from a mechanics point of view, those products work extraordinarily well, but they also need to be taken care of. So the more technical you get with a mix, the more you need to have quality assurance and quality control. What am I saying in all that jargon? And I play both sides here. I'm like, okay, what did he just say? You better flat out worry about how you're going to take care of that product after you place it. Curing is by far the number one issue that I've ever run into in the last 30 years. Let me get into 1L. Now, I respect that comment. So we get into 1Ls, and back in 2011, I began working on specifications on putting that verbiage into 1L. That 1L came from a European influence, which the company I did work for was owned by Europeans. So we're getting that influence there. Canada's been using it since the mid-'80s. And then I was involved in research with 1L. So from an engineering point of view, this product worked. Now, what I don't know, you don't know, I'm a terrible finisher. So I'll just tell you right now, I will put a bird bath in every single driveway for free. All right? So no issues there. But the 1L was actually an influence from other owners being government owners that were requesting a nod towards CO2 emissions. I am not here to talk about that subject, but I am telling you that that's how that fruition happened. So we started seeing it on West Coast, and it started coming in this way. So what the European companies said that own us, we need to make a CO2 emissions reduction. The fastest way a cement manufacturer can do that is adding limestone to it. Now, there is a certain percentages that have been tested, and where it can go all the way up to 25%. What you may not know is the cements of old, 1990 prior, is in 1992, we were allowed to put a process addition into the mix. So you were receiving limestone in your mix for the last 25 years, but it was below 5%. So what the cement companies did is add a slightly higher percentage. I have tested all the percentages. I know what happens. We actually tested it on site with finishers in other regions. I watched this being rolled out to 4 different regions in 5 different states. Iowa's included. I was up there in Iowa and Minnesota. And so I've been in Pennsylvania, New York. I've been to all these ones, and we've tested it there. So the initial process was getting it out. We did not see all of the variations, but what we saw, it was, let's go, let's do this. So that's how we developed all this, getting into the 1L. So it was a driver from an owner trying to reduce the CO2 green sustainability issue. Personally, fly ash and slag are way better at reducing the amount of greenhouse emissions. But really, I'm a practical guy. To me, it makes a lot of sense using a byproduct that really helps out the end product. Green or not, it's good for the end product. You had a comment.
I'd agree with you on the slag. Problem here, what we had is producers, instead of keeping it below 25%, we're up to 40% and causes a lot of the problems. But you said most important part is curing, correct?
Correct.
I mean, everybody says that. I had a couple driveways last year we cured, got done, cured it. Rule number 1, I get taken to court, threatened to, yada, 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 over it turning colors. I was getting browns, oranges, and yellows. Now, other contractors that were pouring did not cure, theirs weren't colored. So what do you do at that point? Thank you.
I have experience with that aspect. Do you have experience in that?
Yes, through you.
That's because of me. Oh, there's no doubt. Out of the millions of square feet that have been placed, there is bound for stuff to happen. And we talked earlier, and I hate the aspect of when someone comes to me and goes, I cured it and it still went bad. That doesn't happen very rarely, but I have tested where I have purposely tried to mess up a concrete pad. Her and I were doing research, and she's like, I need to mess up the concrete. I'm like, oh, I'm your man. Let's go. And we purposely added water and all that, and it didn't work as well. I didn't mess it up enough. You can do everything right and still have problems. And yeah. Well, no.
So I'm. This is going to be another good show of hands thing.
Yeah.
So explain. I got a question for you, Sam. What was that, a water-based or a solvent-based cure?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It was solvent-based, wasn't it, Adam?
Yep.
Solvent-based.
Right.
Okay, so I have heard this phenomenon quite a bit. How many in here have seen this in the last 3 or 4 years where everything looks great and you spray a solvent-based cure on it and all of a sudden it starts looking a very brown, weird, dirty color? Show of hands. So it's splotchy. So this is definitely a thing because I have seen this myself. The guy who poured the driveway next door didn't cure it at all. It's nice, white, cured out concrete, but they didn't cure it, so we're going to have problems with that. This is the thing that we're going to see. This is the hamster wheel, is we know we should cure it. We know that helps the problem, but we're doing a residential driveway, and it needs to look really good, and sometimes curing it properly, spraying enough cure on, actually makes it not look as good. And so this is kind of the battle back and forth. So, show of hands, who has had this phenomenon happen with a water-based cure? So to that is what I've seen. I've only seen it happen on solvent-based products. Now, again, this doesn't do anything for stamped concrete, decorative concrete. Those things, most people are going to want to use a solvent-based product on those. Again, I've only seen this on gray broom driveways. I have not seen this on colored concrete. We're gonna hit curing. We're gonna come back to this quite a bit because this is a big deal. This is a big deal for the engineers because they strongly believe in the curing part. Obviously, there is definitely something to this. The concrete finisher is trying to create the most visually pleasing product, and that's where we start to butt heads on this. Now, real quick, we have an online question, so Rocky, go ahead.
So Mark Online asked, his biggest problem he's seeing is scaling. He wanted to know if raising the PSI is going to help cut that back.
So I'm certainly not an engineer, but I have been told by someone who is a consultant. I asked the same question. Okay, if we're having these issues and we have granulated limestone in our mixes, should we up our cement content and richen it up? So the problem is you're just adding more granulated limestone. So that's not always the case. So I can't say from like you guys' standpoint, but the person that told me this, I respect and I believe. So I can't say for sure if that's the case, but it makes sense because you just are adding more of the granulated limestone to it.
So I'm curious, Adam, because Adam is very versed in concrete mixes and what makes concrete do this, where the sweet spots are at. We've had a lot of good conversation on the topic of PSI. PSI can be raised without adding cement, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you had an interesting little story about sometimes actually less cement in a different rock can get you the PSI in a better form.
Yes, correct. I mean, again, I'm not an engineer. A lot of what I know is from experience and doing it. Anybody here do commercial floors? Yes, I know you guys do. Okay, so you need a 4,000 PSI floor, right? Well, if your cement's real high and your aggregate's small or the aggregate count is down, that floor is going to shrink and curl and you're going to not have flatness and stuff. So by using a higher stone weight and a larger top size stone versus a blend and less cement, you're going to achieve your PSI because you get it from your stone. Your floor is going to stay flat. It's not going to shrink up and it's not going to curl as bad. So that's an option in that for you there, because the more cement, we were talking a little bit earlier about this, like that was one of my first moves because we are out there placing and finishing, and I have control of the mix I send to my crew. So if you're going to fool with somebody, you're going to fool with your own. So you're like, hey guys, your stone today is going to be at 1,800 pounds and your cement's going to be lower. Tell me what that does for a driveway. And then, yes, I'm responsible for the driveway, but you got to try to figure stuff out. Yeah, it's hard to straight edge. Yeah, you're working to close it up. Okay, well, let's go back to like our 1,700 pound stone and go up to, say, a 7-bag mix. And wow, it's sticky and it does all the stuff by adding more cement to your mix. So I haven't really found that niche with it yet. There's not a sweet spot. Every day's different. We all know that. But you can achieve your PSI by just increasing your stone and your stone size and not upping the actual amount of cement in the product.
That's what I think most plants have been doing, quite frankly, because everything's been a lot bonier. And it's hard to get in, but it seems to be staying stronger. Cracks aren't happening as bad or crazing or anything like that. But, for years it was like, oh, let's go to a 6-sack mix, especially for stamping, to keep it nice and creamy. But it like they poured yesterday, and it was so sticky. I mean, he was calling, bitching.
Flood stuck to the straight edge.
Yeah, and we've been trying.
It was just like, it looked wet and buggy, and then when it come out on the ground, it would just stay in like a plop, like a pillow. Like,
We tried to start jitterbugging more rather than bull floating. And that seems to help get the stone down a little bit, but then it's sticking to the jitterbug really bad. So we have really turned the finishing aid a lot, but I don't know if that's good, if that's breaking down the top. We're not using water, we're using finishing aid, quite frankly, and I know Ben and I have talked a lot about it, densifiers have been like the better move, it seems like too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what you're saying, and when last year, when our plant had to change over, we took a day and we poured our manager's driveway and she changed the mix. We practiced. And like every truck, she did something different, whether water reducer, the stone, the mortar, whatever, and they all sucked. But they did, I mean, they were trying to figure it out. I don't think these ready-mix plants have been educated enough. And they just kind of, like that man said back there, just kind of got thrown into it. And then, so we're all, as contractors, thrown into it too. So I think that's where a lot of the problem has come. But now we're all kind of learning.
Well, I just want to, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a point about finishing aids. That's a hot thing. Everybody's using it now, but
Can we wait for a second?
yeah, if you got something.
We want to spend some time on finishing aid.
Okay.
I want to get there.
For sure.
But I want to just stay here for 1 second. I think you're absolutely right that as most of you guys are contractors, we should be having more discussions with our ready-mix suppliers. Our ready-mix suppliers are having to deal with this as well. They are a party in this fight here with us. And we'll get there. There is a lot that can be done for mix optimization. And so to your point about what you talked about, it's not necessarily changing the size as it is getting the right gradation and getting the combination of sizes. So again, I agree. It's not just adding a higher strength or adding more or less cement. It's how it all interacts together. And I think that's where we can push back. And we kind of need to rely on those suppliers to do some of that due diligence and figure out what level of mix optimization that we expect for them to have and for them to understand what they're actually giving you as well.
And what if they're old school and their slag pile and their sand soaking wet? It snowed that night. Yesterday, we were short on the load, you know, because you know the weights are off there. So there's a million things here that factor into this.
Yeah, there are a lot of one-offs, and we could have that conversation for days. But and I know he wants to.
Yep,
to add
and we
something
got
too.
Bobby over there. Real quick, just to finish up, Mark's question online, and thank you, Mark, for the online question. So the original, where we started this whole thing was, will adding more, I'm having some trouble with scaling, will adding more cement to that solve my problem? I think we can, the easy answer is no. Just adding more cement is not the answer to that. And there's a lot of different ways to attack this. Concrete is an incredibly scientific thing. And even though, you know, we sat here, we talked about slag, talked about fly ash, you know, I mean, I personally been used fly ash my entire concrete pouring life and had very little to no problems with it if it's used in the right dilutions. There's always a sweet spot. Just adding more cement isn't necessarily the answer. Just adding bigger rock isn't necessarily the answer. It's that combination that makes it all gel and uniform. So, Josh, we'll get to you in just a second. I'm sorry, Bobby, we'll get to you. Now it's Josh. Oh, it was Dave.
So I had a couple of questions. Our local ready-mix plant has a chemist, and so I met with him in the spring. He suggested using an integral sealer. That's the way he described it to me. I don't know much about it. We did start adding it. I did a test pour at our shop because I wanted to make sure it would still take color, do all of the things that we would do for decorative stuff. And then the other thing that we did was we added colloidal silica. The colloidal silica, they say you got to get 70 revolutions. So then your concrete's like a friggin' rocket trying to put it down. You know, you're just, I mean, it starts pretty loose and you get a couple wheelbarrows and already you're like, holy crap. So we've been using those. And then the other thing was that he told us was Massachusetts had already outlawed Vibroscreeds. So everything that we did exterior was all hand screeded because they're saying that the vibrations brings the light that's real, the limestone so porous that it rises right to the top. And so you get a lot of flaking and everything falling from that. Like we did a pour that was on a pretty steep grade. Now we hand screeded it, but everything at the top was fine. And as we worked it down, all of the lower stuff was all spalled and flaked, and it was all the same truck. No, it was a driveway.
We've had that too, David. I mean,
I gotta assume
yeah,
that.
so exactly what I was gonna say. So it, you know, we've seen it to where we start out at the top and we're good, and the next thing you know, the bleed water has made its way down. So, I don't want to jump into the colloidal silicas, but I do want to say they are mostly water, right? I mean, they are, so we are essentially adding mostly water to the surface. Do we need it? Sometimes to finish the concrete, absolutely.
Are you
You know?
The colloidal silica we're putting in the truck.
Yes.
And then 70 revolutions to get it fully mixed is what we were told. So, you know, you're hustling to get it done when it comes out of the truck because it goes like a rocket.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know about the integral sealer. We haven't had any callbacks so far this spring. So this is all stuff that we started last year, and we'll see.
To the, I know that there's a lot of different brands out there, Impede, but it's essentially an integral sealer.
I mean, the purpose of the Vibroscrete is to bring paste to the top. So it doesn't matter if it's a 1L or a 1.2. That's literally the reason for it. So
If the lightest material is the limestone, then that's your weakest thing. You're just bringing it right to the surface, correct?
I'll speak to that a little bit. Your limestone, remember I mentioned earlier that you already had limestone in the type 1s long ago. We added a little bit more. How much more? About 30 to 40 pounds more per yard. So you have 4,000 pounds of material and you're adding 5% more fines. I'm going to tell you that the specific gravity, which is the weight of the material, is heavier than water. Your water's going to come up. Your water's not going to attach itself to that limestone particle and bring it up. It's just not for, you can see that. You could play with, test me on this, because if you take a mason sand and put it in a concrete instead of a concrete sand, you'll get a bunch of fines to work with. But those fines from the bottom aren't gonna come up. It doesn't work that way. There would have to be forceful pressure of that moving up for limestones to be separated from that.
states are doing weird things right now.
I think we can all agree on that.
They don't really know what to do either. I mean, Iowa said you only use an integral seal, and now they say don't do that. So that changed within like 2 to 3 years of them issuing the first mandate. So they don't know what to do either. So I wouldn't necessarily look to them for direction and clarity at the moment.
So from an engineer standpoint, what's your take on the Vibroscretes?
I think you start with mixed design first. And I'm old school. I always do mixed design first. Your aggregate blending, your aggregate sizes. If you get a proper mix, that is going to stay cohesive and not kind of segregate in itself. If you get a mix that is not done well, maybe not mixed up long enough, where there's water, job site water addition, and they don't mix it long enough, you're going to get pockets of water. So it's no different than you take a bowl of oatmeal, putting water in it, shaking it up, and letting it sit there, and all of a sudden the water comes up. That's what happens when we don't mix it properly on a job site. So that's one major thing I'm noticing immensely with the 1Ls. And all my ready-mix customers, that's one thing, when we go through this, and I've been working with these guys in this region for a long time, through this whole duration of, okay, we need to pay attention here, here, and here. What in the mix design do we want to change? And that's great point. Talk to your ready-mix supplier. The comment you made, I'd call them today and say, hey, what's going on? We want to try something else.
Definitely a no-go.
We're going to pass
How
on
about
that.
the integral? How about the integral sealer though? Does it help at all or?
So I have seen success with an integral sealer. I don't want it used in lieu of traditional curing where you can traditionally cure. So do not use it as an end-all be-all. You can still get drying from the surface. You still need to protect that surface. That is still your front line of defense.
Yep.
Here's the
They
thing.
don't always say that though, but that is
better.
absolutely
One
right.
is called integral sealer. The other one is called curing compound. Those are two very, very different things. Water repellency has nothing to do with the loss of moisture evaporation when that stuff's placed. So thank you guys. Bobby Denny is next. We're going to hit him and then we'll move down the line.
Good afternoon, guys, and thank everybody for being here. I guess I was sitting over here thinking, and it's that part of when you have the conversation with the ready-mix supplier, because it's like as soon as you seem like to bring it up, and it seems like it's a liability issue. They shoot it straight back to us as a finisher, and we finish it the same way we've always finished it. And we're not trying to blame them or have them cover the cost, because ultimately the customer paid to have their job rate done. I have to replace it, so I have to buy the concrete twice. I just, I want to be able to have this conversation with them and then be able to educate us as well and let us know what's the way to go forth. And somebody had said it, like there's a huge gap between the cement supplier to the ready mix companies. Because when you call them, the first thing they say is, well, did you add too much water? That's not what I'm calling for. I'm calling to see how do we get a good finished product back to our customer. I want to be preventative instead of, I don't want it to be a blame game. I want to have a good product that I can sell and a good product that I can stand behind, because we haven't, we have changed our finishing processes with this, and I'm the one that's eating that cost, as far as the sealers, the finishing aids and stuff like that. That's all the stuff I eat, and my price, the people that I work for, they don't want to hear that. They just like, hey, this is your square footage price, this is what it is. We're mainly a place and finish company. So as a way down the tier guy, I'm like responsible for the product that's coming out, that I have no say so in the mix design, that I have no say so in who we're getting it from. I'm just a place and finish guy, and they're saying, well, that looks like crap, and so I don't know. I'm trying to like just bridge this whole gap of with this Type 1L as my station in it, and be able to educate the people that I'm working for and have them being able to have the conversation with the supplier. So I don't know if maybe someone can help us with that, or I just had to put that out there.
You want to take it?
Yeah, I feel that as a ready mix producer, I feel the same way. I'm also a contractor, so all the way through. So you call, I make a phone call, and the evaporation retardants, put them in the mix, do this, so my cost goes up. I'm buying another chemical, and you get kind of nowhere. It's just a redundant circle of thing, and I feel for you there because it's tough. My driveway was poured in June of 23, and it went through its first winter. It was fine. Last winter, I'm missing areas the size of my truck. This winter, it's doubled. So I'm right there with you. So I supplied it, I placed and finished it, I cured it, I saw cut it, I did the whole thing. I sold it to myself. It's a problem, and it's very unfortunate that we're dealing with this. And I know I am continually trying to do what's best for our customers to get something that they can place and finish and hold up. So it's rough. I just got to keep working to get where we need to be.
Yeah, I'd say I wouldn't necessarily make the conversation project specific. I would say, if I were to place a driveway, give me your mix code that you would use, and let me see the actual mix design for that code. Some trucks, you won't even get the printed batch weights on the bottom of the delivery tickets, and so you have no idea what's in it at that point. But I think that's the first step, is one, kind of see what information you are already getting from the supplier. See if you get the batch weights printed on the bottom, because there is a design column if so. If you don't even get that information, ask to see what the mix design is. You deserve at least that at a minimum. And look at it yourself and see, what kind of volumes are in there, or does anything look weird? Ask the questions of, like, what do you do when the admixtures change? Or what do you do when you get a new batch of cement in? Like, do you change anything? Do you test anything? Ask some of those questions. And one, it shows that you're knowledgeable enough to, one, ask that. But two, like, it kind of puts them on notice, like, hey, we expect some of this feedback from you, and see how they respond. Start there.
Yeah, and I think so far the one thing we've landed on right now is conversation with ready mix plants. So again, our whole point in this, nobody's got a magic cure, but we're trying to take some key points away, and that's one of the big things that we've landed on. Another thing, real quick, and we're going to get back to you guys. We're going to make our way around the room, guys. But you said one thing, Jay, about adding water, job site water ads. Anybody who has ever added water on a job site? Show of hands. Entire room. What are we doing wrong, Jay?
Yeah, Super P is the old name for the water reducer, super plasticizer. So we could add a admixture and make it go from a 2-inch lump to an 8-inch lump. They have much more sophisticated admixtures now that,
I'm saying just sticking to water. The concrete shows
just
up,
stick
the
to water.
admixture's in there,
yeah, mix it 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Every time. Don't mess around. The reason I know this is because I've tested it, and your first 2 yards after you mix it and you shortchange it will be about an 8-inch slump, and in the middle will be about a 6-inch slump, and the tail end will be about a 2-inch slump. And you're not, I made this comment, and I don't know if you fully grasp it because I had to investigate it. Like, what the heck's going on with this floor? I see pockets of water. And so I went back to the lab, tested it. When I shortchanged it, I had this pockets of water. The water is not becoming part of the mix. So when you shortchange it, I know 3 minutes is a long time, but for those that used to smoke, that works just fine.
Half a cigarette, right?
Yeah.
7 minutes a cigarette.
You're right on. So I am perfectly okay with adding water at the job site. I hate placing stiff concrete. I'm totally there. But let's make sure we mix it properly. I'd love to comment on you. I love your point, and I want to make this work. I have been very successful with working with the ready mix. I'm the technical guy from the cement industry, my past life, working with the ready mix. And when the contractor comes in, we're all in the same room during the winter time. Hey, I want something better. Do you got any suggestions? And I have had great success in that, of creating iterations, and then they follow up with you. Now, maybe your ready mix supplier doesn't do that. Maybe he wants to. Maybe you force him and push him. I would really encourage that. That's going to go a long way. I have seen mixes change based upon the contractor input. So it's worth it.
His trucks are great. Then that one has so much calcium buildup in his lines, that truck won't take 40 gallons. So you're gonna have another pocket there. So that's gonna go on and on.
No, it is. But this is good stuff, guys. Conversations with ready mix plants. Mix for a full 3 minutes, because honestly, that part is a big deal. We've all done this on site. Throw the valve, let it rev a couple times. It's good to go. But that is a big deal. All right, we need to work our way towards the back of the room. I will get back up here in a second. So who was first back here? You?
Hey, Jay, I'm a ready mix producer, EPA. Couple questions on.
Where are you from?
Erie, Pennsylvania.
No, what ready mix?
Deco-Crete.
I know him.
Yeah. Why did they change the blame on the 1L? So when you had the 1-2, the grain size of the cement blane was coarser. Now we go to the 1L and we're 3 to 4 sizes smaller when I compare my cement bill of ladings and my batcher slips, for lack of a better term, on the mill reports. Thank you. Between the 1-2 and the 1L.
Yeah. Well, great question. When you go back to Erie, tell them I said hi. But what he's talking about, Blaine, is a fineness. So when you talk about fineness, you got granulated sugar and fine powdered sugar. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So the initial phases, that actually happened back in the mid 80s, where we increased the fineness, which made it more reactive. So from a contractor point of view, I can get in and get out. That's why that occurred. When we enveloped the 1L, what we were doing was we wanted that same reaction of the set time, so you can get on it in that. So what they found is the target is 400. I know that you don't care to know what that is. There used to be about 400 Blaine. We have tested all the way up to 500, 520, 600. Now 600, you're getting into type 3s. So that's way too much money and time and to do, and it just doesn't react well. 450 seems to be where a lot of the cements are ending up. Now,
Higher Blaine means finer material.
Yes, thank you. That's why I got her here. So the main reason is because we want the same kind of consistency as the old type 1. So that's where they were positioning. Now, there's a lot of different theories out there. Higher Blaine means more water. Not always. But many of the cement companies, I gotta be careful what I say. Many of the cement companies are still in process of figuring out what works best for them. So you might have seen a slightly higher Blaine, and then they switched back. So it was kind of them figuring things out in the market too. Hopefully I answered that question.
Yeah.
Also, like the other component of that is remember our materials are different. So they're grinding cement clinker, a very, very hard component, with limestone, which is a very, very soft component. They're not going to grind the same way. Something soft is going to get a lot finer. So I could argue the Blaine number is meaningless for a 1L because your particle size of your limestone is significantly different than the particle size of your cement that you're grinding down. So I don't even put a whole lot of weight in Blaine at all anymore.
Yeah. So there was a lot of us geeking out up here, but in all sincerity, what you're monitoring is how fast it's bleeding, how fast it's setting up. So those are the two characteristics that you are concerned about. We never changed things at a cement plant for a long time. We got in a groove and just made it work. I've been involved with about 2 or 3 of those cement plants no longer working because of they've been replaced. So the old days of 20, 30 years ago, you don't have that cement anymore. I mentioned Bessemer. That was my first cement plant. They closed that down in 2009. So now we're getting cements from all over the place. So if you get cements from a different ready mix outfit, I would expect you to have different characteristics. It could be fast set. It could be slow set. It could be the bleed rate. And unfortunately, Ohio, the blending market of multiple cements. I bet we have 12 or 14 different cements in this market.
Other question I had with that, with the Blaine size, does that affect the bleed rate? I think that's the biggest challenge that we've experienced. You know, there were plenty of challenges that just through paying attention to our product, we were able to overcome with our admixtures, where they dose, how our aggregate falls into our central batcher, you know, the time frames, the whole thing. But I think as a producer, listening to our customers, the finishers, the bleed rate is the big characteristic because you aren't getting that visible sign that it's time to finish. You're going out there because it feels ready, but there's a bleed that happens, at least in my opinion, so late. Is that related to the fineness of the cement, or how is the bleed changed going from the 1.2 to the 1L, or is there a change?
I'm going to tell you there's a change between different cements. The wampum product bled different than the Bessemer product. The Speed product different than the Cosmo product. And if you guys don't know, I'm just rattled off 4 different plants in this region. They all behaved differently. So just simply changing a cement will change that characteristic. In the old days, I would see a guy with a trash can lid. Anybody do that? Okay, good. I'm glad I'm the first time that you guys hear this. So when you're a finisher, your guy would put a trash can lid down in a certain area and watch the bleed, and then pull it off and be like, okay, oh, we're still bleeding. Put it back down, come back to it. We're done bleeding. Let's finish. Now, most of you guys are way past that. You can just kind of touch it, lick it, and totally know when you're that good. But the bleed rate is important. Did it change with the 1Ls? Yeah, there's some that did. I tested, our lab, 12 different 1Ls. And unfortunately, the answer you're not going to like. Some bled more, some bled less, some didn't. Some were the same. That is the honest answer. Out of 12.
Guys, as contractors, how many of us have seen concrete bleed in the last 5 years? Like, is it like we don't see bleed water at all? Like, so as guys that are out in the field finishing this stuff, we're not seeing bleed water come up. It's making it very hard to read.
Yep.
So, and from what I'm reading about the 1L is they're saying let it sit longer. Well, for a lot of us, there's a lot of decorative guys in this room.
can't.
Leaving it sit longer to let the bottom catch up is not an option. So what is your solution, if there is one, to that?
I made a comment to the guy up from Iowa. In Iowa, I learned that they use a product called a VMA, and I'm not here to promote products. I'm here to I am so hardcore technical, it's not funny. But a VMA actually helps in windy conditions. I haven't seen a hill in Iowa. Okay, so there's nothing but wind and corn. And thank you for but 94% of the Iowa market is concrete pavement. So they figured it out. So I looked at them and found out if you add a VMA on a windy day, it really helps hold in that moisture. So when that wind's coming across there. So the bleed rate is, let's just say you have a less bleed rate. Okay, fine, we accept that. But now we want it to hold, you know, we want to hold it in there in some way. Sometimes the integral sealers have helped for a short period of time, but I found the VMAs have helped also.
I'll go one step further there. So I've also heard the same feedback about VMAs, anything like a stabilizing admixture, that those can be very helpful. The key there is still protecting the surface. And so we've seen a huge increase in evaporation retarders be used, because in my experience, I have seen that you need to protect the surface even earlier than you think. So before you even start thinking about curing or not curing, if you can't or won't or whatever, it's the very early stages in the concrete's life where you can't even get on it yet. You need to be protecting that surface. And so taking a product like an evaporation retarder, where you spray the air above and try to prevent that moisture from the concrete from coming out, that can also be really, really helpful to protect the surface, again, from drying. That's what we're trying to do. Keep the moisture in. It may not bleed, but it's still going to try to be releasing that moisture from the exposed top surface. So that's what we're trying to do. Some of the other things that have been helpful, if you are out in a flat environment and doing flat work, put windbreaks up. Try to do something to prevent that wind from going straight across the surface. Yeah, it doesn't have to be big. Something to just block it and make it go up and over the surface rather than directly on top. Protect it from the sun. Like, there are little things that you guys can do to try to protect that surface beyond just going and buying more curing compound or having to deal with what do I do about curing. There are some little things that you could be doing that may not be, sufficient in our opinion, but is better than doing nothing.
Hey, real quick on the evap retardant, because I think this one's big. Who here has ever used an evap retardant? Uco-Bar, Deco film, Con film. Somebody tell me how that operates. What do you do with evap retardant? Spray it on and let it sit. How many people have ever worked Uco-Bar into the surface? Come on, there's more hands in this room than that. There's more hands in this room than that. We get this all the time. A finishing aid gets sprayed on and worked in to help you bring some moisture to the surface and make it look better. An evap retardant gets sprayed on, and it's like putting a big piece of plastic over the concrete. And so that is something that, as a manufacturer, we see our products misused all day long, because we got a product called Deco Film. And people buy that stuff and they work it into the surface, and that is absolutely doing you zero good at all. If you want a product like that, you need to use Slab Saver, but it is not going to do what evap retardant has done. It's just going to help you make the concrete look better. So I think that.
Can you use both?
I would personally not use both. I'm curious what you would say about this.
I'm not a huge fan of finishing aids. The actual part of the finishing aid that's doing something is a very small percentage of the overall product. How it gets there, the medium in which it's applied, is water. So you are just adding water and working it into the surface. So everything that you're trying to combat with curing, protection, windbreaks, all of that goes all out the window when you put water and work it into the surface again. You're making then a higher WC, more porous, more permeable surface layer that then can't resist freeze-thaw damage, salt scaling, everything else from the surface. So I'm not a huge fan of finishing aids.
I'm curious for the contractors on the panel. Do you use evap retardants? Do you use finishing aids? Have you noticed any differences in jobs you've used those on and those that you haven't?
So for us, Jeff, I think it just comes down to the day. There's not too many days that are exactly the same on a job, and they're bolting the truck every day. Sometimes we'll use bolt. Sometimes we'll get done screed and we'll bull float it the first time, get the surface evaporation retarder down, let it sit, that goes away. We got to start finishing. The guys start complaining, putting color hardener on a border, we can't get it in. Okay, get the finishing aid up. So there's times we've had to use bolt. It happens.
So I can't really say much different than Emil did. It's kind of the same thing. We keep them on the job. And you know, the crazy thing is our mix design, say we're doing the same exact thing over and over. And we use the same mix, same everything. And every day it's different. Even though the weights, everything supposedly comes out the same, it may be a little rockier one day. It may be a little grittier one day. It may be sticky. It's frustrating. So it just depends on the situation, the environment, what the weather's doing, and what it feels like. How is it acting? So
Adapting to the situations.
Yep.
So, just to recap real quick, and I'm going to come back to the room next. Have conversations with your ready-mix plant. When you add water on the job site, full 3 minutes. If you guys don't think that that's a long time, like time it sometime. It is longer than you think. And adjust daily. Concrete is not the same thing every single day. You've got to adapt to your environment. So, all right, I'm heading back here. Sam Thomas has one last question on the way back.
it is true.
You don't want to add water. If you're going to add water, you want to do it at the beginning of the truck. You don't want to dump out 3 yards, add 5 gallons, dump out another yard, add 2 more gallons, dump out 3 yards, add 5 gallons. Because every time you do that, you're changing your water cement ratio so much. You know, 5 gallons over 10 yards is a half a gallon a yard. 5 gallons over 2 yards, you know, is making a greater difference on your water cement ratio. And every time you've added water, you're diluting that water cement ratio. So by the time you get down to that last yard or two, you might have a 0.65 water cement ratio, and there's you're losing durability. And the other thing, I guess, with the L1 question or 1L question is, when you're talking scaling, are you talking like sheet scaling, or are you talking more like a mortar flake where the surface is hardening because it's setting up? You get that second bleed water coming up through, hitting the surface that's sealed. It's going to bleed its way down through, but it comes across over that flat piece of limestone and can't get back down through there. So you have that moisture pocket. And, you know, under every one of those, you're going to see a piece of stone. You know, 30 years ago, we had problems with soft stone, and the stone was fractured. So those are sort of some of the issues that got.
You want me to go to scaling now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's going to take me a second to get to my next person back here. So,
So when I'm talking about scaling, I'm talking about the loss of that surface region. So it could be large sheets, it could be like flakes, it could be just a general disintegration. And I would agree with you guys that I'm seeing an increased occurrence of scaling over the last couple of years. Granted, we have had some of the worst winters that we have had over the last 5-10 years as well. So the increased occurrence of de-icing agents went up as well over those. Georgia, you probably don't deal with that a whole lot, but we use them all the time up here. And we always like to say, don't apply de-icing salts the first year of the concrete. Every homeowner does, and you can put all the language you want in your contract, and they're still going to do it. I understand. Also, your aprons typically kind of go first as well, because your salt from the street get sprayed up, and you also see an increased occurrence in wheel tracks. So where the actual vehicular traffic is driving in.
What about before your first freeze thaw season?
So we have seen some issues with that as well. Yes, I'd say generally though, the larger callbacks, the larger areas of concern are happening the springtime. We're starting to get the calls
I
now.
would agree with that, but I'm just curious because you're talking about how we're only at like 30 to 40 pounds of limestone, and a lot of, you know, the fiber screeds, that's kind of does, you should be able to still use them, but yet the pop-out scaling has exponentially increased. And I'm talking backyard patios, no de-icing is used whatsoever. It's just solid snow all winter long. We've got good pour days. I understand there's different environments and everything changes from day to day, but we're in pretty ideal conditions. We're trying to follow industry standards to the best of our abilities and what we know. And without any huge major changes on our part, our scaling has exponentially increased. I mean, just where's the battle? What do? It's a limestone
Mm-hmm.
and the process is still fairly similar, something's causing that to explode. And
Yeah.
it's terrible in decorative concrete. So worst
Yes.
thing ever. for
Yes.
safe concrete.
So the other aspect of, your overall freeze thaw durability is your air void system. And exterior concrete flat work, we need a proper air void system. So it's not only the total amount of air, it's the size and the spacing of the air that you need to be good. And so,
One other thing quick, the same thing. We stopped using steels too this
Okay.
past year, which can't get as nice to the finish, but
he said we stopped using steels.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't trowel anything.
Yeah.
We float it and that's as good as we get it.
They just float in and are done. Yes. So I am seeing, and I don't have the research to back this up yet. I'm sure some universities do, but I am seeing variability in our air void system with the same admixtures that have been used historically with the 1L cements. So something is going on with the air and training admixtures and the material itself. And so I have seen increased air, like 12-15% air, which isn't helpful because you lose your strength to resist the freeze thaw, or reduced air, where you have 2 to 3% when you should have more like 6%. And then I'm also seeing a lot more clustering of air. So air might be in general a good volume, but you'll have some air here, here, and nothing in the middle, which also is not going to provide freeze thaw durability. So you don't necessarily have to have the de-icing salts to have scaling or a freeze thaw effect. You also don't have to have freeze thaw at all, although it's most common. But there is an air component as well. And this gets back to the ready mix supplier. How well do they know their admixtures and how it affects their mix?
The steel thing, would you say it's good, best not to use it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so I want to touch back later on the steel finishing element, but we have a question back here. This gentleman's had his hands up for quite a while, so go ahead, sir.
I had three, but most of them got answered. On the 3-minute mixing, does it matter if you're mixing 2 gallons of water or 10, 15 gallons, 3 minutes, no matter what?
No.
Same,
No.
3
Yeah.
minutes.
And it's not full charge. It's not 100%. It's mixing speed. So there's a full charge and there's a back off. The back off is the mixing speed. So if you do a full charge, it's going to throw all the material on the outside. And so you want it to flop, flop, flop. So that's the other aspect. Most ready mix drivers, they got it going on, but I know you'll keep them in check. So.
That was good. Like this is good stuff here. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, that was it. No, it's Casey.
I thought your name was Casey, but it says Ray on your name tag.
Yeah. No, that and then the evaporation retarder. If you put that on, how long does the evaporation retarder work till it's gone? Depending on the situation.
Depends.
Depends. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like if once that evaporates, then you can use a slab saver if you had to. That was my only question, but it was kind of touched on.
Yeah.
You guys want to comment on that?
Yeah, it just like I said earlier, and they just agreed upon. I mean, are we pouring at 5 a.m. and we've got time for it to sit there and then absorb? And at that point, do you really need finishing aid or slab saver? Maybe. Is it workable? If not, then I would spray some on there. I try not to use as much of that stuff as I can. But if you're in full sun and you pour out, that's a completely different story. So I think it's just really job and weather dependent.
All right, thanks, Casey. All right, who's next? All right, I'm coming down the middle aisle here.
Yeah, how you doing? I was just wondering about I wanted to go back to the steel trowel and the just floating. I wanted to know what your guys' take on that as far as air and not air.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from y'all because I'd like to speak as a finisher as well. So you guys.
I love it, Ben. I love it.
I'm just going to put my foot in my mouth then. So we, as an industry, we do not recommend steel troweling when you have air and trained concrete at the risk of delamination of the surface. at all. Yes. I'd say I really only see this a problem in like heavy industrial warehouse slabs interior, where you have really heavy loads and you're really burnishing that surface, where you're using like ride-ons. That's where I traditionally see an issue. But typically you're not using air and trained concrete there, so it's okay. So like something else happened to get you to that point. There are other issues that are not your fault at that point.
I think another thing, just to slide in real quick, is there's a difference between steel troweling, what you just described, and using a steel trowel to put a little bit of a finish on some concrete that's actually not that far along, and then pulling a broom across it and opening it all back up again is very different than creating a troweled finish.
Yep.
That's absolutely correct.
Oh, yeah.
Because the point is, right, you're closing the pores, you're opening. So if you do it quickly and then allow those pores to reopen with a broom, let's say, absolutely okay. It depends on like kind of that length of time there. Again, it depends on the situation, right? I believe it. I think it should.
Stamp's actually going to close. Stamp's going to close it more than anything.
Well,
A compression.
Not more than a steel trowel, but it's going to compound it. Like we're hammering a texture in. It's actually
You're embedding
it, closing it.
It's okay to put to compress on it. The steel trowel is actually breaking the air bubbles. And that's what you're destroying, that surface. That's where that happens. In a Fresno, I've seen, this blew me away. So an exterior concrete, the guy had the steel in a Fresno out there. And that is that is against every code I've ever seen. And on all the ACI specs, and it's standard practice in a certain region not far from here. God bless you.
If you're not gonna broom it back open, exterior, if you're not gonna broom it back open very shortly, don't steal it at all. Don't steal. It was back on.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm gonna speak as a finisher here, if you guys don't mind. So there's a few things that I get frustrated with on this topic, and I looked into this. It's been several years, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where I read an ACI. And correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of you guys may know this exactly, but I believe I read do not hard trowel air and trained concrete. To me, I interpret that as to burnish maybe with the trowel machine. If they didn't want steel, why don't they just say don't use steel on exterior concrete? Now, a caveat to that is edgers aren't made out of magnesium. So it's okay to use that steel on the edger. So I get lost with that, and I agree. I mean, you know, some of the best people out there that I've learned from, I really look up to, they put steel on concrete and stamp it, and we've done that forever, but now all of a sudden we're seeing issues. Is it from the steel? I don't know, but it's happening all over. It's not just, you would think that these issues would be just on the edges because people are using steel on the edges and mags everywhere else. So it should be scaling on the edges and not everywhere else. So correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody knows the ACI, does it say do not
I think
hard
you're right.
trowel?
I think it says hard trowel.
So I interpret
Yeah.
that different, I guess, but I wish they would fix that because people do get mixed up. Now, overall, is it better to not put steel on it? It maybe so. That's something I can't answer, but that's where I get things. It's a huge debate in the industry. Let's just say that.
Again,
Well, we will do our best to get that changed. So.
I don't know. Maybe we're better off leaving it vague right now because everybody can get away with it. But no, again, the common theme here is no job is the same, no day is the same. We're going to adapt. You know, this whole conversation, I mean, we have always used steel on exterior concrete. Again, we're pulling a broom across it immediately or we're stamping it after, or, you know, fairly soon. Never really seen any issues of that. But of course, that's absolutely against the rules. Sure. And I love the edger. I love the edger argument. I've always thought the same thing. Like, well, how is that any different? So, all right, you got a question, sir?
I've got a question on like scaling of the surface. I personally haven't had with my business any problems with the scaling of any sort. Other guys that I've worked for have. I don't use the same ready mix company they do. So they've been repairing that. but I have a few customers right now who, because I'm from Illinois, I'm sure a lot of you guys have had the harsh winter, old concrete starting to shale off the top. So my question, I guess, maybe from an engineering standpoint, say a porch with the 1L, is that shale gonna happen all the way down? Or what if you grind the surface down and then put some sort of top coating epoxy on that? Or is it gonna happen continue to happen underneath it, but also do the same thing with the older concrete? Because I have several customers who want, hey, can you come out and look at this? I'm like, well, it looks like it's just shaling off because it's right in front of your front door. You put a lot of ice there.
Yep.
So if I grind that surface off and put a top coat on, is it gonna last a year? And then that concrete's weak and it's gonna shale off again? Then I'm like, I should have just tore it out for you and put a brand new porch in. So I guess it's a two-part question, two-part answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to give a disclaimer here. Repair is a whole nother world. There's some really awesome repairs out there. They're super high strength. They bond well. You prepare the surface very well. Hydro demolition if you can. If not, heavy acid will open up the surface so it'll be absorbed in there. So you got a lot of
Don't
stuff
do
going
that,
on.
please.
Okay. I'm just going
Thing. Is the surface underneath, like you said, is it going to be brittle underneath? Should I just tell the customer, I'm like, let's just tear it out and start from anew? And I know you're going to get up with the 1L concrete, but we'll see what we can mitigate, etc.
Get rid of the latency, right?
Yep. Yeah. So good comment. Majority of the time, even under a Petro, you get rid of that top surface, you have very sound concrete. So what you've done is you've created a curing layer, a curing blanket underneath there. It's expensive. And if you take off that top surface, you now have a beautifully exposed aggregate surface. I wouldn't put anything on it. And if this was mine, and I've played around with it, I grind it off and put some kind of penetrating sealer on there, and I'm done. Now, if I put some, I think it's gator grip, some real fine, sharp, something for abrasion, traction, so they don't fall and get a free vacation out of it.
I'm going to give you guys a business idea right now. Learn how to sandblast the surface of Type 1L concrete driveways off. And if they have scaling, you can literally go on there and sandblast that surface off and now have a very light exposed aggregate surface. And if you started a crew in Ohio, you could be busy for the next 10 years. You could do a driveway every single day. And but no, this is true. We've now gotten rid of the weak layer. And we have something that still looks pretty good. It might not look as good as if you had done exposed aggregate in the beginning, but it's pretty darn close. If you can figure out how to nail that, you can start a crew tomorrow and work all summer long with that. Well, if you grind it, it'll work. It's just going to be very slippery. If you sandblast it, you're going to be left with a textured finish.
I like hydro demolition. It's way better because even the sand is going to microfracture. So if you just grind it, you're going to have a terrible time with microfractures right underneath the surface. So hydro is a beautiful way. It doesn't disturb, and you have a good something to grab onto.
Go ahead, Adam.
Wet sandblasting?
Yeah, wet, and you can do a high pressure hydro demolition. Yeah, love it.
This is
no
actually,
dust.
I said earlier that the driveway at my house is destroyed. So last winter when it first started, I was like, oh boy. And everybody's like, you gonna tear this out? Like, nope. What are you gonna do? Well, I'm gonna let it go through another winter just so I can watch it. And then this is what I'm doing. This is my fix. I got probably close to 70 some yards, and I'm not tearing it out, not going through it. So this is my fix.
Are you doing this yourself, or are you going to bring somebody in to do it?
I'm probably gonna trying to do it myself or team up with somebody and do it together because everybody has this problem. So you have to have a solution. So I thought, well, at my own house, you can play around and I can handle the results. But if you come up with a resolution, yes, it's not free, but you're not tearing out yards of concrete.
I think we just hit our fourth big point that we just learned here. We get rid of the surface layer, we've now got rid of the problem.
Generally.
Generally, of course. Nothing is concrete in concrete.
I mean, so this is what I do every day, all day long. I look at bad concrete under a microscope. I'd say over 90% of the time, you are correct. That if you get that top 16th, eighth of an inch off, you are good. And the reason for that is because you're losing moisture from the surface. So that bleed water eventually gets to the top and it carries all the soluble components up. And as it evaporates, it leaves all those soluble components in a dense band that's about a 16th to an inch below the surface. That now acts as your like front of protection. So when you lose everything above that band, that's the weak part. That's what you're braiding off, that you're scaling off. That then serves as your line of defense. And you don't necessarily want to get rid of that. So I tell people, number one, can you tolerate the appearance? It's going to look really variable until that entire surface flakes off. But if you can live with it, live with it. They don't love that, especially if you're the one, taking the money from them. They don't love it. But if a residential owner calls me, I say, I'd try to live with it. Number two would be to scarify it off in some manner, means, or method. Scarify it off and then leave it. Scarify it off, put a penetrating sealer on. Mm-hmm. Penetrating means it has to penetrate. So it has to be able to go in. Yep. I do not love braiding down and putting a thin topping on. I think you're going to create more issues and more callbacks for yourself. I do not love putting that back.
Not to be disrespectful, these are not solutions for any of us here in this room. They are
Well,
not.
so I'll tell you, to get to that solution is having a petrographic examination done, which is more expensive than replacing the driveway usually. Mm-hmm. So generally I tell people just replace the driveway. I almost always see a curing related issue at the surface, a drying out of the surface. Sometimes I see it being the material was delivered incorrectly. Something happened at the supplier. I'd say that's rare. Generally, I'm finding something installation related. Unfortunately, I don't love having to be the bearer of bad news always, but.
All right, question from the back of the room here. Mike from Missouri, go ahead.
If you take the top 1/8 inch or 16th of an inch off, will the next layer eventually scale off also?
Depends if you have a good air void system and what your water to cement ratio is to start with.
All right, anybody else since I'm back here at the moment? All right, all the way from Michigan. We love Michigan people down here in Ohio, especially after the season that the Buckeyes just had. So go ahead.
So this has been in place in Europe for 20 to 30 years. Why aren't we using that for, I guess, knowledge?
Can you ask this?
So
I can start this one. You're absolutely right. And they not only have used it for longer, they use higher limestone percentages. They use up to 30% or more limestone in their cements in Europe. The difference is that their mix designs are different. Their finishing practices are slightly different, and the demand on their concrete is different. We in America are pushing that material to give us everything it's got. They don't do it the same way in Europe. They don't expect it to do the things that we expected here. So it's completely apples to oranges comparison. They don't have the same mixed properties that we demand from the concrete here. And long story short.
Low breaks.
Define low breaks.
Breaking lower than they should, 7, 28. Sometimes they catch up later on like 56 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed because we have in our area we have some that don't use type 1L, they still use standard 1, 2, which is great. We love it. Fix in our area. And then the other ones that don't purchase their cement from them because they ship it directly, right? Greece, Turkey, and overseas. The other companies that buy it from the other cement manufacturers, their breaks are coming back a little lower.
So when I hear a question like that, and this hasn't been the first time I've been asked this.
Real quick, from the back of the room, they were asking if you guys could repeat the question. We didn't have the microphone up there. They couldn't hear in the back.
Good comment. Yep. Yeah, the question was, what about the low breaks? And then I said, define low breaks. And and I did that on purpose, not to be deceitful or, oh, I gotcha. It's 20 years ago, I had similar conversations, and I think through all the work that we've done, and Carla included, is we keep talking about the top surface. Strength is not really truly the issue. It's a curing aspect. And gosh, we've said that so many times, I feel like, ugh. But where I'm going is the cement needs water and it needs the moisture to gain strength slowly. That's why you have 1 and 3 and 7 and 28 days strength. So that strength is slowly coming up to speed. So most of the time, and if my buddies were asking me, well, how long do I need to cure it? I'm like, 7 days. Okay, we need that. We need about 75% strength. So the strengths that you're getting are tested in a little cylinder, and they take that cylinder away and they test it. Basically, what's that doing? The ready mix outfit is saying, I provided you a concrete that meets what you have asked for. Usually that's, in the old days, they said 5 sacks, 6 sack. We don't do that anymore. We do 4,000, 5,000, those are the PSI type strengths. I am more on the emphasis. I'm taking care of the top surface. I'm making sure the cement is not drying out, because if you take a concrete, place it today, leave it out there, and then I actually, I'll get half my strength that I need. If I ordered at 4,000 PSI, you're getting about 5,000 PSI because they over-design a little bit. So that strength out there is 2,500. If I take that same concrete, put it inside, cure it, in 7 days, I'll be at least 4,000. And then 28, I'll be a little bit higher. I'll be about 5,000. It's all an aspect of, and they call it unhydrated cement. I hate using big words because I'm not that smart. I just learn every day. And the cement is just dry in there. So you put it in there and it dries out. So you actually just level off on strength. So my emphasis is your air and curing. You need those two things for freestyle durability. That message hasn't changed for me for 20 years. I kid you not. 20 years ago, I was saying the same thing of cure your concrete, cure your concrete. I hope that answers.
All right. Well,
Just used to go out there and the water probably poured on an 80-degree day.
Yeah.
And 6 hours later, Pino was out there with a garden hose spraying everything down. So is that?
So the question is whether or not I should pond the concrete.
Water cure.
Water cure, yes. So that was what we used to do. Now, I'll push back on that because, I feel like I'm the old guy in the room. And, before me, that's what was done before all these great and, admixtures. And we've complicated things. Okay, but we've complicated things because now we're doing more than one driveway a day. And in the old days, they would do one driveway a day. One. They would sit there, you'd watch them. They would be there all day. When they left, they got a hose out and they just turned it on and let it ride. We can't do that. It's just a freaking mess. Yeah.
Real quick, I know Ben has something to add, and I have a follow-up question from Casey before we move to the next one. So go ahead.
I was just gonna actually bring up Casey's question. So, obviously we heard of the talk of 1L cement 5-6 years ago, but it was kind of the buzz, and we didn't get it until about 2.5 years ago or so. So I'm like you, I literally, as soon as we experienced something different and we saw something that was kind of seemed to be falling apart on the surface, I dove headfirst into. I know people say, I went to YouTube University, and I literally became infatuated with this stuff, with AI and doing. As my wife thought I was a lunatic. She's like, "Why are you spending so much time on this?" And it bothered me because I didn't know. And so, come to find out that Europe, yes, they've been using all this stuff for 20, sometimes 30 years. But it's not as perfect everywhere as you think. I've actually talked to people where there has been football-sized chunks of concrete that have fallen off underneath bridges and down onto the road. So could it be an anomaly? Yes, that was one instance that I heard of. But I talked to someone who has personally was involved in something like that. So I don't think that it's maybe like I said, it could have been an anomaly, a one-time thing, a failure, but it may not be as perfect as we think.
So, and that was kind of Casey's follow-up was that, well, I think that was great what both of you said, that because it's working in Europe, that doesn't necessarily mean working on the American standard. But is there anything that we can learn? Is there anything that we have learned from what they do in Europe? Are they doing anything different than we are, other than you talked about the mix designs, but they're just living with more scaling, the way it sounds?
I think they just take things a little slower too, which is not our way of doing things. It's not capitalism.
Kind of
So
what Jay was just saying.
I'd like to add to that because, 15 years ago, when we were doing floors, we'd break it down one time with like a 4-footer to walk behind. We let it sit. Now, and my guys, everybody is on it, on it, on it. Pass after pass after pass because they're wanting a super flat floor and they say they're doing it. Why did that change? Because to me, and him and I have gotten into this before, that's not the way I learned to put a floor in. It was like, let it sit, break it down, let that bleed water come up, then you start hitting it, when you got the right pass. But I'm telling you, I don't know if it's to keep SSI in business, because in 2 years, I had to hire SSI. We were going against Mitsubishi architects. We were burning a floor with 6% air in it. It was like marshmallow fluff.
Yep.
I mean, I was freaking out. We were doing everything we could. It was horrible. And I had to hire SSI. And it's like, everybody's situation's different, but why are they doing that now to just keep going over and over and pass after pass and not letting it sit in between like we did 15 years ago? That's a finishing question, but.
I don't know if I can answer that.
Because if you hit it once, you let it air up for say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hit it again, you're able to get it back down without getting real gritty. But if you hit it and then you let that air up for an hour and a half and you go back to get it, it's never going to break down. I mean, that.
I guess with riders, it's better too. I mean, I did more smaller floors years ago like that. So that could be part of it too. But to me, it's just like, not letting that bleed water.
Expectations, right? Expectations. They are through the roof in the modern time that we live in. I mean, we need to go back and remember that, the whole point of concrete was something usable that we can drive on and build structures on and use as foundations. But we're now at a point in 2026 where we expect the most pristine concrete ever, and we also expect it to last 40 years. And like you said, we're trying to slam out 8,000 yards a day, 30,000 yards a day, whatever it might be. So I think this is also, obviously, Type 1L cement does play a role in everything we're talking about, but there is more to it than that. And something that I've just noticed myself over the course of the last 3 years is Type 1L cement has become the new latest and greatest thing to blame everything on. And so obviously I've seen I've personally seen a lot of issues with Type 1L cement, but I also see a lot of stuff online. I answer a lot of questions online. People send me photos and they literally say, well, this is a Type 1L cement thing. And I look at it and I'm like, guys, I've seen this 15 years ago, way before Type 1L cement was ever even introduced. And so let's not go down that road and fall into this train of everything is now Type 1L's fault.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's always been issues with concrete, right? I think that's just kind of our go-to blame method now. But it's obvious that we are seeing more issues as an industry now than ever before. I did some research and they said that litigation has went up astronomically in the last 4 or 5 years compared to the last 20 or 30.
All right, who's next?
I'll make one
go
comment
ahead.
on that. Observation is one of my key attributes. I just love, and I cover so many different states. I follow the customers that I work with. One particular customer, I'm not going to name a name, but they had both cements available, both Type 1 and Type 1L. They laid out the problems from the year prior, and the Type 1 had as many plus 1 as the Type 1L. I have another producer in this region, that hasn't had a problem. So I'm like, what? Why am I hearing this localized pocketed thing? I would love to tell you I have a reason. I don't. I went over to Indiana and same deal. I have one producer that I worked with. Now they tweaked the mix. They really did. They made some adjustments when they went to 1L because their finishers were coming back. And so they were able to make the mix more effective and optimized. So I just don't think you can go 1 for 1 anymore. You can't just go, oh, we're going to use this flavor today and that flavor today without making the effort to identify these things.
Yeah, no, and again, there's obviously there's issues that are directly related to this, and so we know that. But let's take it with a grain of salt. Online question, and then I'm going to get to you, David. So go ahead.
All right, so Kyle on YouTube asks, I always use integral sealer with from Sika. Does it matter if I use a solvent or water-based cure and seal if I'm going to cure and seal?
So.
No, I mean, didn't we just talk about solvents earlier? About
Well, it was more of a visual thing. I think he's
Okay.
asking from a functionality standpoint, a solvent-based cure and seal, a water-based cure and seal. I'm just going to throw another animal in the mix, dissipating cure. Is there any difference? Do we see any differences between those types of cure?
And what would you recommend from an engineer standpoint as to what the best way to cure it is?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm gonna throw something out that no one's gonna like, but I'm gonna say it. I don't like cure and seals. I want to see a curing compound or a curing agent and then a sealer. I want two separate products.
What's the time difference in
28 days.
Okay.
That's the problem. That's why it's never done. That's why it's never done.
no sealer to protect that top level for the first 28 days?
So a curing agent is supposed to prevent the water from inside the concrete from getting out. A sealer is supposed to prevent the water from the outside from getting in. So
I say
two
that
very different things.
whoever came up with the term cure and seal, I would like to change that to cure or seal.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, you can cure with that bucket of cure and seal, and you can seal with that bucket of cure and seal, but not the same time. Two separate processes. It's either cure or seal. But as far as, you know, you could go down the road of, you know, solid content and ASTM 309 or whatever what's the next higher one? I don't even know off the top of my head. 1315, I want to say, or something like that. Have you guys seen a difference? So I know that you guys are big on curing from the engineers in the room. What do you, so Carla, you're saying that obviously cure it immediately after finishing,
Yes.
seal it 28 days later. Couldn't agree more. But let's talk about that product we're using day of to cure it. What do you guys prefer? Solvent-based, water-based, strictly dissipating cure?
I don't really care as long as it's down according to manufacturer recommendations. That's the other component, right? So like a curing compound, it has an application rate. How many of you guys actually do the math and find out how much material you should be putting down for a set area?
Good.
Wow, that's more than I normally get an answer for. And you should be doing that math, and at the end of your application, you should be verifying that that amount went down. Because if you didn't put it down that right, it's too thin. No one's putting it on too thick. So if it's down too thin, it's not going to be working.
Curing agents are easier to put on.
Yeah.
Sealer, that's no.
Yeah. Yep. So I would rather you put anything down correctly than one over the other. Generally speaking. Generally speaking.
You're not really leaning one way or the other as to what type of curing compound, so long as it's put on at the correct time and put on in the correct rate.
I mean, I have my preferences in my order, but yeah. Yes. I mean, I would rather wet cure, but I don't think anyone in this room is going to wet cure for 3 to 7 days. I am just,
I had 7 days on school, and we had to use, like, we used to use burlap.
Yep.
But they spec this white, slimy.
the sheet.
Oh my God.
The sheet. People love the sheet.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nobody wanted that job. You just
Oh,
look
they
at
use
that
it all over
and then
Texas.
you forever.
Mhm.
Well, I can see. But then you gotta come back, you gotta roll it up. Oh, it was so hard. It weighed 2 million pounds. You're
Yeah.
dragging it. It was awful.
Yeah. So I would prefer.
This is where we're going to go back to expectations, because here's the
Exactly,
difference.
yeah.
There's a trade-off.
Yes.
To cure it the way
absolutely.
that Carla just described it, use it properly, hit the manufacturer's recommendations. If you're trying to hit ASTM 1315 and you actually do the math of how much curing compound you need to put on to meet that spec, I can promise you as a sealer manufacturer, you're drastically over-applied that sealer to be visually pleasing if you're using that, if it's a cure and seal and you're using it to cure. Also, we get into stamped concrete. This is something that's now almost impossible to do, because if we cure this day of finishing, we cannot do anything after that. That means we can't add any stains, we can't add any antiquing, all that stuff. This is where some differences come into play, expectations. So Emil, Ben, you guys obviously do predominantly stamped concrete. Have you guys found anything that's working for you guys on the curing aspect? Powder release is a great cure for the first day, but then you wash it off the next day, and we're not even coming close to our 7-day period. So what have you guys found that's effective?
So the curing was never a problem in the past. Like none of us would ever worry about that. You know, we would pour, we would do our cutting, we would wash it off, you know, come in, do our antiquing, seal it, boom, we were done. So now it's a big issue. Well, how do we combat this? You know, it's going to change the way we do business.
Yeah, so you know, curing I definitely do in the summer. It's not something when it's, you know, 50 degrees outside, am I out there spraying it with water? No. But if it's in the blazing heat, so we did a Veterans Memorial, it was a 60-foot stamp circle, integral color, and I thought this was just kind of worth sharing with the group. And we poured, stamped the integral color. Right after that, about a month later, we had an 8,000 square foot stamped driveway. Obviously, with that many pours, you know, we would have different colors, different hues, the integral color. I said, okay, not only that, but we started seeing some flaking on our Veterans Memorial. I said, you know, obviously I'm blaming 1L cement, right? So I'm like, okay, we're going to get ahead of this and we're going to use shake-on color hardener. And so we used it. It was 4 pours. We did like 50 yards a pour or something like that. And every day it was blazing hot. So we had concrete at 5 a.m. By 2, you know, we were done stamping by noon. By 2, I was out there. Had different hoses and we were just misting over it, you know, obviously not spraying it hard. And then we'd cut and then we'd wash it off. And we were out there till about 7 every night, right? And that is one of the jobs that ended up scaling across the whole thing.
But to their standards, we are not curing the concrete. No. They're talking about a minimum of 3,
right?
Ultimately 7.
Well, I thought
Not one of us
water
in the room are doing
curing
that.
is that not considered?
But 3 to 7 days, not just us washing it off
So
after we cut.
We ran sprinklers on ours.
yeah.
If it was real hot, we got splitters for the hoses. These backyard patios, not driveways and stuff. But yeah, we ran splitters and we ran sprinklers, and we would just keep it wet. We figured if we got past the 3-day mark, that was doing pretty good. But I think so.
Have you guys noticed any difference on those jobs you did that on compared to the ones you haven't?
Yeah, I don't have a callback.
That's a pretty big difference.
So, you know, it's not running all the time.
Well, no, I want 100% water all the time.
Well,
Because if it's wet, dry, wet, dry. So
That's no good
what you're doing is expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction. So you're
well, like even in somebody that just
soaker hose, just a soaker hose at a crack.
they don't wanna walk through the grass. So they
Yeah.
time really
So-
wet, but
From an engineer standpoint, if you can find a way to keep water on your pad for 7 days, that's gonna be your best cure, hands down.
At 7 days, you have about 60 to 75% of your concrete strength. So if you're comfortable with that, 28 days is like 90%. So
Right, but
But
Frank Kelly, I
it-
can't water someone's
I-
patio for 28 days.
I totally get you, but I'm not gonna tell you, boom. I'm gonna tell you what I did on my own, and it was 7 days.
Yeah.
So you know that seemed to work for me.
Yep.
But with all the concrete being done, I kind of want to ask this question without. I know where the exit is. Okay, so
It's pretty far back there.
well, I know. Jump out there. You know, I was with a customer, and the customer came to me and said, I did 1 million square feet last year. And that's I'm like, whoa. But that was just with one customer. So I think he did like 10 million, a lot. He had 3 callbacks, and he was pissed. And I'm like, what? You have 3 callbacks? You did that many? He goes, I don't want 1. I'm going, well, gosh, I don't know a profession that is that accurate, let alone concrete that we mix with and then we work with by hand. I totally love the aspect of stamped concrete. I think it's beautiful. I love it. The callback sucks.
Yeah.
But our level of expectations is 100% perfect. This is not the Olympics.
I would tend to agree with Jay on this. You know, 1 job out of 20 isn't that bad. We've always had that. Where I see the frustration is the guys that are now getting 8 out of 20 as far as callbacks, because that is a big
Yeah, we
difference.
don't want that.
Adam just brought up a great point because, you know, the whole water curing thing like is an interesting topic to go down. And this is one of those things that if you water cure it for 7 days, a lot of guys already have sealed and moved on after 7 days on a stamped concrete patio. So this is something where you will have to change your practice, but this that could be very effective, but it's going to slow you down. It's going to change your practice. We'll go back to now we're only pouring 1 driveway a day instead of 3 driveways a day. But Adam brought up a great point. He said if everybody starts water curing, we don't have enough water to even sustain this.
Oh, he asked if in an ideal situation.
Yeah.
I know it almost never gets done. Even on my own jobs, it doesn't get done. So I get it. But in an ideal world, that's what I would do.
No, it's interesting. And this is, I got to tell you guys, hopefully you guys are enjoying this because this is really, really fun for me right now to hear everything that's going around the room. So did you guys have anything you wanted to add before we move on as far as the topics we brought up? All right, who's got the next question?
We've talked about tooling, we've talked about steel versus mags. Has anyone played around with the poly tools to see a difference from the concrete feeling sticky on the tools or any type of different finishing?
You mean the plastic mags and stuff? Yeah, I think they're great. Some of them I'm not a fan of. Honestly, the big name brands, there's like super square and real flat. There is a new brand. I can't think of the name of it. I think you guys were using it. It was amazing. So, yeah, so I don't know, but AJ sent it to me too, and it was already like a broken mag. Incredible. Yeah, so. Yeah, no, it brings up a lot of paste, but is that a good thing? I don't even know. So it's like, but no, it was nice to use for sure.
If
Pulled them out when we had our floor stuff, trying to get some green off, so everything's.
If you want to try it, send me a sample, do a test patch, send me a sample, and I'll tell you what the concrete looks like. Because I'd love to see that.
No,
So-
this is actually good because these guys are from Warren, correct? So they're not even that far. I would love to see you guys hook up.
Do
Here's
like
the
a
thing.
test slab and do mag on one, steel on one, poly on one, and we'll take 3 cores and I'll tell you all what happens.
As a matter of fact, I'd love to come with you. That we'd shoot a little video on this whole thing for Deco-Crete TV. So, but no, I mean, this is how the whole thing, how we're going to grow from this is doing tests like that and getting together. I know that there's a big divide in the room, but the more we work together, that's how we're going to figure this out. So, all right, did you have one, sir? They got me working over here, sweating, walking back and forth.
The Cadillac concrete products, I don't know if you've run those, but I did get one of them, and they are a bitch to break in. Excuse my language, but they are great to use when it's getting pretty hard. If you work at it, as far as working in color on stamp jobs, they do make a huge difference. I have noticed that.
And that would be like the poly tools. Yep. Anybody else while I'm back in the back part of the room here?
I'm from Buffalo, New York, and we just bow float and then we hit it with the Orange Thunder, which is that poly and broom right behind it. And we're getting a lot of Spalding. A lot of Spalding in Buffalo. Is there, you think it's poly or using the poly as the, we don't even go out and mag anymore.
I don't know about that one.
You have a pretty extreme environment out there too, so that's not helping anything. Buffalo.
But yeah, you have less freestalls than we do down here.
Yeah, it just stays cold always.
Yeah, I like the aspect that you're not messing with the concrete. You're just kind of putting it down, letting it be. Are you protecting it afterwards with anying?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Are you protecting the concrete after you're done finishing?
Yeah, we spray with a penetrating sealer right away.
Okay.
It's in a green bucket. I forgot the name of it, but it's supposed to be the top of the line penetrating sealer that's anti-Spalding.
Okay. Gosh, I got maybe this is a good time to chat about this, but we touched on it earlier about just simply curing the concrete, and I think that as a contractor, I would want to just cure concrete and give the flyer to the homeowner and say, I've done the best I could. If you want to do something else to this to seal it in 2 months from now, by all means, seal it. Here's a coupon to get $20 off at Deco-Crete. Okay. And two things. One, they're gonna show, oh, I need to take care of this surface. Yes, you do. Two, when they go in and purchase it, you have documentation of like, hey, you're taking care of this concrete. So it gives the benefit of curing and taking care of that process, and then letting it dry out, and then sealing. And that, you know, most owners will go, I just spent a really good chunk of money on this. I love how it looks. I want it to look better. I mean, who buys work boots and puts mink oil on it? I mean, the work boots are fine. Okay. I mean, I still do. And you put mink oil on it. Why? To make it last longer. So if you're selling a cure and seal aspect, stop. I mean, stop coming back and sealing unless they're going to pay you. Just cure it and walk away. I'm sure I got myself in trouble in that. There's a lot of nuances. Stamped concrete, it's a different animal.
I'm working my way around to you there, but no, I think if there's anything you can get out of this is curing and sealing does not happen at the same time. I don't care what that bucket says. We sell like 5 different buckets that say cure and seal. You're never going to do both of them the day of placement.
From an engineering standpoint, I live about an hour south of Chicago. Illinois sucks, which some of the other states do, as far as, you know, it's 50 one week, next week it's 20 below zero.
Yep.
So in my area or anybody else who deals with that, what's worse to the concrete? The cycles, or if it gets down to 20 below zero and stays that way for a period of time?
It depends. So if it gets cold while the concrete's young and then gets warm again, you can recover quite a bit of that strength gain. If it gets cold and stays cold, you will not get to recover some of that strength. If you get hot, cold, but it's still like 40 and up, I'm more worried about thermal effects and thermal cracking potential.
The long-term durability of it, and I try to avoid more.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question for the room. So he wasn't necessarily talking about young concrete. He was talking about concrete who you know, 3 years old. We had a rough winter. Would you rather see it just stay at 15, or would you rather see it actually go through cycles?
So the problem from a freeze-thaw durability standpoint is the cycling, the freezing, the thawing, the freezing, the thawing, all of that. So why Denver, Colorado, we have more freeze-thaw distress than anywhere else. That's the highest number of freeze-thaw cycles in the country. If it stays cold and stays below freezing, we don't get a cycle until it thaws in the spring. So that would be preferred. It's the fluctuations that give us the problem. And the other aspect of that is saturation. So if your concrete is dry, you don't get freeze-thaw distress. Your concrete has to be critically saturated, which is about 86% of our pore space has to be filled with water. So that's the other aspect of this. If water can't get into the concrete, you won't get freeze-thaw distress. Yes, can drain down, yeah.
And again, we're going back to Concrete 101. Sub base, good pouring and finishing practices, curing, and then properly sealing, which is actually going to keep the saturation levels down. So we got an online question before we move on.
So Tyler on Facebook asks, he has a question about nanotube technology and liquid carbon. Could that add any strength or help out at all?
Hey, you were gonna take it.
Oh, I love this question. Done a lot of research with this. And my first question when someone says I'm using this product, I go, why are you using this product? And they'll say, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. I like this product. I think it offers a lot of benefit to a finisher. I think this product needs to be tested in a lot of different ways. So if the manufacturer is telling you that it does this, verify it. I mean, Ronald Reagan said it very well. You know, trust yet verify. I've tested some of that, and some of those claims aren't accurate. Meaning, it does not self-cure it. You still have to cure the concrete. So we've said that enough times that I'm not going to beat that up. I really do. I've personally seen to where it's been in a flat work, and the sun was beating on it, and I got on it with a trowel after set time. It's already set time because I already did that. In the beaten sun, I rubbed it, and all of a sudden some paste came up. I was like, huh, that might be something useful. So you're going to have to verify why you're using it, because it's going to cost you money. Okay, and then test it out in the field. So I don't see a problem with using it. It's just like every other thing where it's like, okay, this is going to help me out on a windy day. I need VMA. Okay, well, why am I going to use this nano silica product? It has some benefit. I don't believe all the benefits they sell.
All right, and thanks for the online question, guys. This is cool having them come in from both directions. So we got about 15 minutes left in the panel, and what I'd ultimately like to finish things up with a little bit of sort of where do we go next, and let's sort of recap the things that we found to be effective. But we have time for just a few more questions. So.
We didn't really talk about how do we fix the problem? Like your driveway, where you going to go with that? You're going to grind it? You're going to leave it alone?
I'm gonna take the paste layer. I'm gonna take the paste layer off, and I had two thoughts on where I was gonna go. It was either gonna be penetrating sealer or like a lithium silicate densifier. I haven't taken enough time to decide which route we're gonna go, but either using like a hydro blasting and just blast it off with water that way. I did think about just trying to grind it, with like cup grinder, just like that. Again, somehow I'm getting that top off. Well, nature's doing a good job right now. So, right. But yeah.
You got that exposed aggregate finish free of charge there, Adam.
I will say if you do use water and you're going to follow it up with a penetrating sealer, it has to be dry. So if you do water, don't immediately put it down. Let it dry. It needs to be able to penetrate. So just clarifying that for the audience.
Yeah, so that's a good thought, because here's the thing: is a lot of it, we get this a lot, but there's that penetrating sealer is mostly water. What's the difference? Well, there's two different forces counteracting each other there. So think about, you're putting down a penetrating sealer, asking it to penetrate, to do its job, and if that slab is saturated, you now have water pushing up out of the slab while you're asking a penetrating sealer to dive down in, and those two things just don't work.
With penetrating sealers, you're right. That the drier the concrete is, the better it's going to perform. And you really can't put on coats of penetrating sealer. You need to put it on. You brought up your application rate. That is very important. And almost wasting product when you're using penetrating sealer, I would recommend that. I mean, I've went as far as just you open buckets, guys dump, guys squeegee. Some of the products you can walk in and it won't affect the appearance. So you just keep moving your puddles around as you're working, work down your saw cut lines and just put it to it. You might spend an extra $400 of material, but just let it go. And that concrete's going to soak up whatever it's going to soak up, and that's the end of it. You're not going to go back and put another coat on because the product won't penetrate itself. So that's.
And you're not getting streaky.
Nah.
Because I know years ago I did some driveways and I dampened it so my penetrating so it would flow out. But
No.
I really wasn't thinking about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's.
Yeah,
And again, it's just because there's water in the sealer does not mean that it's going to want any water that's actually in the concrete, because we're asking it to dive down in, and we got something there pushing up against that. So we can do like two more questions, guys. T right up front.
We used to use linseed oil in the old days.
So actually, linseed oil, that was actually recommended to us. We did a Get-Go gas station. This is 20 years ago, and it was cold, so you couldn't use any other products. And we would take linseed oil from the local hardware and cut it with mineral spirits. It would go 50-50. And again, you would just put the biggest tip on them sprayers you could and just, and then cover it with blankets and walk away. It's a gas station.
So I want to get back to your curing and sealing some of those topics. I understand I've asked a bunch in the ideal situations what you as engineers in the chemistry side would recommend, but that's just to sort of get like a baseline and then you adjust according to your environment. But if you have correct curing like you're talking about and we use a curing compound for that correct amount, do you still recommend an integral sealer?
I mean, in theory, you shouldn't need it at that point because you're preventing the moisture loss.
But during finishing, that integral sealer could aid in providing, keeping the moisture there a little bit longer.
Yeah, the retention of the water. But if you're doing like an evaporation retarder or fogging or misting, you know, there are other ways to accomplish that, but still take effort. Yes.
Either way you look at it.
Yes.
So let's just real quick. Let's just hit this curing. What is the entire point of curing compound or of curing concrete? The mechanics of curing is to prevent what?
Moisture from getting out of the concrete.
We're trying to hold on to it.
Yeah,
A penetrating sealer, I don't care what it says on the bucket, that is not holding on to the water. We need to create a film. Are we all on board with that? We've got to create a film.
In the wintertime, you can do it. We have concrete blankets. So that's doing my curing in the wintertime. So don't walk out of here in we still have a couple more cold days left. The groundhog, I don't care what he thinks. But don't go cure concrete tomorrow and go, I put my cure on there. Well, a week from now, it's going to be cold. And so you got to pay attention to what season you're in. Late November. Am I going to put a curing compound in late November? You better not. It's not wise because you're keeping that moisture in there. I had a call. The guy poured in December 19, 2 years ago. It was 70 degrees. You guys remember in Ohio? Yeah. And I was there 3 months later. And he goes, what did I do? And I said, did you protect the concrete? It got 40 degrees that night. Well, 40 is not freezing. At 40 degrees, concrete stops gaining strength. So we need to protect the concrete at days later. So you got to look ahead. Thank you.
All right, one more, and then we're going to finish things up with some recap.
Going back to mixed design.
Yeah.
Water over a high range water reducer.
Okay.
In the summertime. And then for the contractors, what do you guys see? We see a lot pumping helps us a lot. When we pump concrete, we seem to get our strengths a lot better.
Sure. Okay, so what he's alluding to is the old philosophy of you add water, it dilutes it, basically. It's like no different than us drinking a Pepsi with ice in it. A half hour from now, it's going to be really kind of watered down. You're doing the same thing with concrete. So what we formulated is the admixtures guys would bring an admixture, a gallon of this stuff called Super P. And it would act like 10 gallons of water by only adding one. So in theory, the less water you have, the higher the strength is going to be. Now, I'm a practical kind of guy. Okay, so the concrete that I've done, I won't add water until necessary. But I have a gallon of that stuff because I have access to Super P. So he shows up, like everybody knows me. I throw it in there, mix it up. Well, I'm pretty slow, and 45 minutes later, it's now 2-inch long. So my pushback is on the ready mix field, and let's figure out how long my admixtures last and figure out why I'm using it. The truck shows up, it's a 6-inch slump, let's go. Okay, but if it's an hour later when it's batched, that super plasticizer is no longer effective. So we have to know what's going on and tell them, hey, and no, they'll figure out how far you're going. And let's say, hey, I need this to be workable an hour longer. They're assuming as soon as you get there, they're not, I'm not gonna say assuming, but there's a pot life to those admixtures. They only last so long. If you have a water reducer, not the Super P, but you have a less range water reducer, there's some of them that only last about 30 minutes. I don't know a job site that the concrete's laying on the ground in less than 30 minutes from when it's batched. So those are some things that I've pushed on in the past. It works, but it only has a certain time frame it works. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we add it on site 99% of the time.
Good.
Like they'll be there at a 4, and a half a dose will get me to a 5.5.
Right on.
I run it through a pump, it's going to be 4.5, 5.
Yep.
And that's what we pour it at.
Yep. And it's going to last 45 minutes after you add that.
And we poured a floor last week. 3 days I broke at 3,800.
Oh, strength is
So-
not the issue here. It's the finishing aspect of
Yeah,
it.
and then we're burning the floors too, so.
Oh, right on,
Yeah.
right on, yep.
Yeah, but was there a question for the contractors as well?
As in over using pumps and not. Because you'd use a buggy and you dump in one spot. We tend to get better strength coming out of a pump.
No feedback.
So, yeah, personally, I don't love using a line pump. Boom pump doesn't really bother me. It just seems like it comes out in paste and then in stone. And it's kind of like, it's very strange. And then plus you have to up your cement content to use smaller stones, right? So that way your brake test is hitting where it needs to.
Depends on your pump.
Okay, yeah, so,
I mean, like, you can have certain companies will make mix designs for pumping.
gotcha.
So
So-
that's where I reach out to.
Yeah, so maybe in your area, like we only have like a 2.5 inch, so we have to use like a pea gravel mix. So our cement content goes through the roof. So, you know, but for us, no, we haven't really seen a noticeable difference for that. So I can't speak for anyone else though.
Emil, you probably don't use a lot of pumps, do you? Yep. All right, one last question. Bob from Ohio Concrete has one for Jay from Ohio Concrete.
Oh, come on.
This might take a minute. The biggest issues we have is durability in Northeast Ohio, and it typically revolves around joint spalling, and we all know that. Can you address for the group here the two things that help change that? One is water cement ratio, where ODOT specifies less permeable mixes, and why water that has to go in has to leave, and why you don't want more water in because of that technology. And then secondly, why SCMs are important in mixes in Northeast Ohio and what they do for durability.
Softball?
Set the clock.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, what was the first one?
Water cement ratio.
Yeah, durability. So it's that same concept. You're watering down that cement paste. And to get the cement needs a certain amount of water to get hydrated. So you got to add so much. It's about 30 pounds per 100 pounds of cement. We add about 50 to 60 pounds to our mix to get it moving. So the water's pretty important to get hydration, to get the strength, but it's also important to use it so we can get so it flows. What ODOT has done is says we need to be at 0.4, we need to be low. We only need about 40 pounds. But after that, you got to use some plasticizers and do that route. So the bleed water that comes up is increasing the amount of water that's on that top surface, so it's going to weaken it. That's why we don't want to hop onto that. Am I answering that question? Yep. Okay, right. Okay, so what he's explaining there is when the water comes up, it's kind of like a sponge, right? So that sponge is sitting on top, and if there's more water in there, there's more space. There's more space that's not strong. Yeah, it's very porous. So by us allowing the curing to happen, it becomes very dense. So we can make it even more dense by using slag cement and fly ash. But I'm going to tell you, and this gets me in trouble, because if you're going to use those products, cure it immediately, because those products become more susceptible to the scaling if you don't take care of it. And I go as far as when ODOT, Ohio Department, we don't have problems on bridges. And if we do, it's not a whole lot. And they use those products, they use slag and fly ash and all those, everywhere. And it's a tight mix.
And they're wet cured.
Wet cured. Yep. They're wet cured. They're a white pigmented curing compound on there, and they put water on top. So belts and suspenders. Well, it all depends what district you're in. So did I answer both those? Okay.
Awesome. So we are starting to run out of time here, folks. And I sort of want to bring this to a close, if you will. I know that there might be a few of you guys left that have questions. Are you guys all going to be at the party this evening? Jay and Carla also? Jay's saying maybe. Carla's saying yeah. Is everybody here coming to the party? Yeah. All right. Well, there was only one hand raised, but I hate doing this. That was pretty weak, guys. Come on. Let's do a little bit better than that. Anyways, I can't speak for these folks up here, but you know, if they're willing to, you can always come up and talk to them one-on-one if you have something that you want to say too. But ultimately, like I said, and we appreciate everybody viewing online. We appreciate the online questions. I thought that went really well. Let's just go down the line, and I'll start the way that we started off. So I'll start with you, Carla, and let's just give everybody some final thoughts. And, you know, even if there's one or two things that they may be able to take home with them, even if we've already, you know, covered it, what are your biggest things or your biggest tips that they could take home that might sort of help solve the problems we're having with Type 1L cement?
Sure. I think my biggest takeaway for y'all would be that concrete is just not the same as it was before, and so practices that were the same for decades now cannot also be the same. And the one biggest thing that I see you guys being able to do is this idea of working with your supplier. Mix design optimization is something that we just have not focused on very much as an industry. And I think that there's a lot of room for improvement there with our mixes, and that is a really good place to start. And so those discussions that we talked about very early on in this segment here, I would go back to, and I would say, let's try to start those communications and let's see what we can get from there.
Go ahead, Jay.
Those 2 points, I 100% agree. I had both those in my head. Working with ready mixes is just really, really crucial. And then, you know, walking away and doing a job you're proud of. I totally get that. And I love that. That's about this community is, you know, that's why you're doing this. You love it. I love his passion. It's small scale testing, figure out, and, you know, figure out why things are happening. Each day's different out there, and you have to adjust.
Yeah, but I think it's also making some sense of what is best for the concrete. Like what Carla loves to see on concrete might not produce the best, most visually pleasing concrete. And we have to manage somewhere in between there, because we do have to produce concrete that is visually pleasing, but it does need to last. It does need to be strong. So for the contractors, some things that again, that they might be able to take home that might help, some things they can try. Also, Ben, I know you had a story and some things that you found that were effective to you. So go ahead and let's finish that up.
Yeah, so I'll get into that. If you don't mind, I'd like to kind of retract to something, and you hit the nail on the head. Concrete is obviously changing, right? And we keep hearing, well, concrete is changing. I just got into a discussion, we talked about this, where someone said if concrete is constantly changing and admixtures are changing, then finishing practices have to change. Well, that's all that's said. It stops, right? And how do we finish this new concrete? When do we need to adjust? What do we need to do? And it's like crickets. And I can probably speak for a lot of us that do finish concrete. We just want to be told what to do, what and when. And we need to know how to make these adjustments. So it's frustrating for us because there's not a real cut and dry answer other than we can't finish it the same. So I don't know how we get to that point, but hope to God that we can figure something out, and we're all in this together. Now, I will say we have been trying the last year something completely different, kind of something new and out of the box. And so we poured a 28-yard stamp patio. There's a deck above us. Well, we were almost done stamping and it rained. And there was a couple areas where we had repetitive drip marks, and went back the next day and wiped my hand across those areas. Obviously, where it dripped, I had dusting. We washed it off, and same thing, it was dry, chalking. So we got lithium silicate densifier, sprayed it on there. This was integral color. Now, we polish concrete as well, so we're used to this, right? So we decided to leave it on overnight. Went back the next day to wash the residue off, and you know how when tan integral color dries, it turns peach. We talked about this. I called Jeff and I'm like, dude, this color is not turning brown when I'm washing this off. It is stuck peach. So we had to experience that. So another story, and I'll get back to that one, but I talked about the driveway with the scaling. We had a repair on the edge where we used color hardener. I personally believe we got a batch of color hardener that had this new cement in it, and it was just softer. So we did this repair that we've done so many times. Went back, my son and I, who is here, and about 20 hours later, I wiped my hand across this color hardener repair, and it was chalking. Luckily, we brought the lithium silicate densifier, sprayed it on there, waited about 2 hours, went back, wash the residue off, and I was scrubbing with my hand, no more chalking or dusting. So lithium silicate does seem to lock in that surface and harden that up. Just be careful if you are using integral color. I would leave it on for maybe 2 hours and wash the residue and get the crystallization off of the top before you continue, because you do not want to do a tan integral color and end up with a peach project. So Densifier has been helping us.
All right, Emil.
So guys, I guess what I would say is like QC is going to be huge. Make sure that you have a good relationship with your ready mix supplier. Work with your mix designs, you know, so that you know what you have. I know, Bobby, you're using a whole bunch of different places. So I would say if you could find a mix design that you know works for you, when you call your, you know, concrete plant, you know, a state away or something, try to say, hey, this is what I'm working with. How close can you guys get to it? What kind of chemicals you use? And have a, you have to be vigilant for ourselves. We're going to be our own best proponent. Know about using like the difference between like a surface evaporation retarder, when to use them. They're going to be a huge help to you. And then when to use a finishing aid, you know, and when they're going to help you as well.
Beautiful. All right, Adam.
Well, you guys all pretty much said everything there's to say, but communication is key. So the more everybody communicates amongst yourselves, with your suppliers, it can work. You can change mix designs, you can tweak them, and get something that you want. So keep communicating, and all problems will go away.
All right. Well, hey, thank you guys to the panel. Carla, Jay, Ben, Emil, Adam. That was absolutely great. Thanks to you guys for showing up to this thing.